Greatness. How does the environment of our African American youth affect who they will grow to become? In most cases, we are put down not only by the outsider looking in, but by the ones who share the same skin to whom we are kin. We are pacified with the everyday motions of life, being blind to the fact that we are continuing a cycle of strife. We look to those who have gained the street titles, not knowing that the need is vital to not only have title in the streets, but have title that's within, a sense of identity, a sense of individuality, so the next person won't look down on me and tell me things that I will not be. Your environment can influence your behavior, but it doesn't have to dictate your destiny. It is often said that we are our own worst enemy. The one who was supposed to be a friend to me turned their back so that they could get ahead out of their own desire to succeed. It is a calamity to see people killing themselves and not even care. It is cowardly to belittle another because you wallow in despair. Back in the days, even though our people didn't have it all together, they stood by each other's side through trials, tribulations, and stormy weather. Where'd the hope and peace go? Tell me what happened to the dream. When will we as a people stand and demonstrate the very essence of unity? How does the present generation think and act regarding to the changes our ancestors fought and died to achieve? This is a new level to decree that African Americans have yet to truly succeed. You see, we take it lightly, the countless lives that have been lost, so that we may not have to pay the cost of not receiving an education, not having a promising occupation, or not being able to discern what man or woman could run the nation. Truly, the present generation has a lot to be grateful for, but instead, we take it for granted, not knowing the value of sacrifices that were demanded, so that we may be a people of freedom and dignity to flourish and thrive in every industry, and let our past become our history. Your past doesn't dictate your future. It simply gives you the extra push you need to exceed greatness. For African Americans, exceeding greatness is a task that still awaits us.
Hello guys, so welcome back again to another amazing episode, and this is the Diaspora Transition episode where we interview diasporans who decided to leave the diaspora, either being the US, UK, and other diasporan countries, even, listen, Jamaica, anywhere, and currently living here on the continent. And today we are in Senegal. You guys saw the previous episode. We are in Senegal now. I'm in Dakar, and I do have, some amazing people here that I want to interview. This young lady decided to leave America behind to embark on a different journey to come to Senegal. Her first country was Ghana, and the second country is Senegal, and she seemed to like Senegal a lot. So I'm here to have a conversation with her, and if it's something you're interested, stay tuned.
Welcome to Dakar, Senegal. Here we are in Dakar. Dakar is the capital of Senegal, and we are located at the Renaissance Monument. This statue is known to be the tallest statue located on the African continent, symbolizing the renaissance of and the plight of our African people across the diaspora. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've been living in Senegal, West Africa for now 15 months, so a year and 3 months. And honestly, my journey has been so cultivating because moving to an African country has been something I've been wanting to do for a very long time now. So being able to see my dream come to fruition is something that is very heartwarming, and I hope to be able to inspire other diasporans to visit the continent, not only visit the continent, but start settling some roots here as well, because we need to take back our land and our rightful place, essentially.
I like that. Now, you are a little bit of an actress yourself, a model. I really want to have a little background on who you are for people really watching you for the first time, and also to dive into your story back in the US a little bit before we even talk about Dakar, Senegal. Is that okay?
Yeah. All
right, let's go ahead. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, really what you do, and stuff like that?
Okay. So again, my name is Tricuria. That's a try for short, like try to remember. I am an author, a speaker, a poet, a musician, model, actress, and educator as well. I'm very heavy into philanthropy work as well, bringing resources to underprivileged youth around the world. I got my education at Howard University in Washington, D.C. I studied my bachelor's in psychology. So one of those people who I love working with people of all facets, all ages. I also am an educator by day when I'm not working on my artistry. I'm an educator by day, educating the youth across the globe, currently working in an international school here.
You know, normally we Africans living on the continent would like to go to countries like the US, the UK, Canada, and all these European countries, right? And so-called developed nation. You live in America. You were born in America, and somehow decided, listen, I'm going to leave this country behind to go to Africa, and not any country in Africa than Senegal. Why is that? Are you okay?
I'm very okay, even more okay. I believe that for a lot of Native Africans living here on the continent, they do want to visit outside. A lot of people ask me like, why don't you go back to America? Why are you here? And you know, one thing I always tell them is I enjoy my peace. My peace of mind weighs way more heavily than the glitz and glam of America or any European country. And it's something about that soul connection, and it's something innate in you. Many of you probably have felt it, or you know, you're beginning to feel it as you become more enlightened and you want to know who you are. I have a poem, and one of my lines in the poem is, the greatest lesson in this life is to know who we are. And when you get to really that understanding, you realize you want to go back to your roots. It's like we're like plants, you know, you want to get back to your roots in order to thrive. And so for me, that's in an African country, but also I do appreciate my roots and my grounding of where I was born. I feel like there's different aspects that you get from, you know, being born in America or European country, but you know, a lot of my friends here, I tell them, you know, you all have a great blessing because you know where your family is from, your family's family is from, you know where they were born at, you know what people they are. For a lot of African Americans or or people in the African diaspora, we don't know, you know, our roots and where we're from, and you know where our, you know, seventh lineage was from. Luckily, I've been discovering more as I tap into, you know, just the Akashic records and understanding of who I am. But I believe that at some point in your journey, you want to go back to your starting place, you know, Sankofa, reaching back, and so you can move forward.
Now, I like that. You know, where did you grow up in America?
I grew up in North Carolina, in the Carolinas. North Carolina by way of Columbia, South Carolina. So I grew up in Charlotte, the Queen City, but I studied in Washington, D.C. So I spent 8 years in Washington, 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of postgrad.
How was your upbringing like, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, my upbringing was, I'll say it was very joyful. I was the only child, but in that, you know, when I was younger, I wanted siblings, but as I grew older, I realized it was kind of like a rare blessing because I was really able to tap into a lot of my creative gifts. My mother made sure that, you know, I was always doing things, extracurricular activities, doing things that were my hobbies and my passions, such as writing poetry, running track, being creative with my hands, making music. I put out like a CD when I was younger. So I believe that I had a really great upbringing, raised in a single family home to a single parent, but I was lacking nothing. So
I like that. Now, was it peaceful when it comes about peace? You mentioned peace. You said you didn't have a peace there and you thought Africa's would give you that. What made you uncomfortable in that environment that you seeked Africa so much for that peace? What was happening at that in your environment?
Yeah, well, I think post-pandemic changed a lot of things, but especially in America, you know, the rise of gun violence, the rise of just miseducation in general within the school systems, being a teacher and seeing just the ins and outs, and also, you know, having to do with a lot of just frivolous things like credit and this and this and that. It's like, for me, I'm a type of person, like, I believe that we were put on this earth to eat, thrive, to live abundantly, and to prosper. And I felt like coming back or returning, remembering, retracing my steps would allow me to better gain the tools in order to actually make a difference.
Did you move to Africa by yourself or with family or friends?
So I moved to Africa alone, solo dolo, but I have 4 godchildren, one in which he is half Senegalese. And so his family invited me to come because I travel to various African countries, and I had never been to Senegal. It never really was on my radar until my godson came about, Serene Saliu. And so I decided to come and visit, but I knew that I was going to stay here for a long period of time. So I did my research for months. It was probably about 9 to 10 months that I began to really plan and save and put the steps into play for me to be able to move.
Now, how did your parents and friends react to you embarking on this journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. They already knew. You know, I think every time I had visited an African country, my first African country I visited was Ghana in 2014 with my university, Howard University, through the Young African American Leadership Initiative, the YALI program. So we were like the pilot program. When I went in 2014, my family was like, all right, come back now. And then in 2015, 16, and 17, I worked for a nonprofit organization in Cape Town, South Africa. And they're like, all right, come back now. Like, so I think that they kind of knew that this was always a part of my journey and a part of my path and destiny.
You know, did you have any misconception, or even your parents did have misconception about Africa?
Growing up, you know, in the media, they showed us a lot of just one-sided view of what Africa as a continent is. And I believe that what my channel aims to do is to kind of help dispel some of those myths that we're taught and kind of show a different side of the continent of Africa with the various countries that I've traveled to.
When did you move to Africa again? What month or what year?
Yes, I moved to Senegal in July of 2022.
2022. Now, you did say you went to Ghana for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose Senegal over Ghana?
Well,
is it a jollof rice?
Honestly, it was because I knew I had family, so to speak, here that would be able to help me navigate through living in a foreign country. So I chose a place where I will be able to have people to rely on in a foreign country.
So how has it been living in Senegal so far? It's been almost 1 year and how many months?
In 3 months.
How's it been so far?
So far, I would say it's definitely been ups and downs, different challenges. I think that especially with the language barrier, you know, their primary language being Wolof and French. I did not study French growing up. I opted into studying Spanish instead. So learning a new language, I have taken to Wolof a lot more than French, I would say, because it's something about local languages that it goes really deep in depth than I think European languages do. So it's been an adjustment, but I have been finding it very fulfilling and rewarding being abroad and living out my dream, essentially learning the culture, the Senegalese culture, being able to take part in educating the youth as well has been one of my highlights. And essentially being in a place where I know that there's representation like me, you know, there are people that look like me who are in, you know, powerful places, powerful positions, and it's not just based off of, you know, how athletic they are or, you know, certain capabilities such as that, but just because of who they are.
Now, you know, one thing that I think it's in the diaspora a lot, or even in America, that most Ghanaian or even Africans on the continent does not like African Americans. Have you had that? Have you heard that before?
You know, people have said it. Have I experienced that outright? I haven't experienced that. Senegal is a place of teranga, like literally hospitality is, you know, what they stand on. So me personally, I have not experienced that, but I know I have heard people say, well, you know, they don't like African Americans, they don't like black people. But I think that we kind of have to meet each other in a middle ground. Because we're coming from across the diaspora, we come from different cultures and backgrounds, but essentially we are at the core similar. And I think when we find those commonalities, then we're able to grow and build together.
Mm-hmm. Have you been able to, you know, I think I heard someone say this, that most diasporans, when they come to, or even, I would say diasporans, when they come to Africa, they just probably do meet and greet. They have community of only African American people, and they don't really merge themselves with the local, you know, community. Have you been merging yourself with the local community, or are you still?
Yeah, I got thrown right into it. I first was living in Chess before I came to Dakar. I was living in Chess for 3 months, and Chess is a more rural city, I would say, a little bit calmer. And so I feel like I was thrown right into the local day-to-day life, and I appreciate that. And that's something that I value when I travel, is to immerse myself in the culture, immerse myself amongst the local people, because that's really how you are able to connect and really get an understanding of that country and that place. I actually haven't had any of the diaspora meetups. So outside of my workplace, but outside of that, I've been really immersed in the local culture, and I'm appreciative of that.
Now, how do you, you know, sustain yourself living in Senegal? And before you answer that, you know, a lot of people say come to Africa prepared, and people think you really need a lot of money to come to Africa. How much money did you come to Africa with? And how did that money sustain you? And how are you even sustaining yourself now on the continent?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it allows people to really be able to better plan. So for myself, I saved up a lot, and I had a lot of investments that I did during 2020. I know a lot of people were getting into investments, stock investments, and so I had a pretty good hit on a couple of stocks, and so that's how I was able to save up enough money to actually make the move. So roughly in stocks, I was able to get about 5,000 US dollars, and I'm only a single person, so I knew that that would be enough at least to get me started. And then once I left Chess and came to Dakar, I began substitute teaching as well as tutoring, and so that's how I've been able to continue to sustain myself while living here. And I will say 5,000 goes way faster than you think when you're living day to day, especially, you know, getting a new apartment or a place, you know, that's investment. And moving as well, it takes time, it takes resources, it takes money. So 5,000 did not last me for a whole year, only about a few months, and then I had to come and seek work.
What really took a lot of your money away? Was it a rent? Was it transportation? What was it? What took most of your budget away?
Yeah, I would say definitely rent, just because when you get an apartment in Dakar, you have to pay 3 times the monthly rent. You know, in America, it's, you know, you pay the deposit, which is the monthly rent, and then you pay first month's rent. So it's 2 times essentially, but here in Senegal, it's 3 times. So imagine. But I will say that the prices, you can find more affordable pricing for housing. However, if you want something decent in a pretty safe neighborhood, then you're gonna have to, you know, drop a little penny on it. So.
Now, if someone is listening to you right now and they are inspired by your story, and they want to move to Africa, Senegal, Dakar, what would be three best advice you have for them?
Three best advice? Or,
yes.
I would say do your research. A lot of times people are ready and so eager to move that they don't really do their research on location and just getting around. But I would say definitely do your research. I would say start learning French, download whatever you need to download, start at least learning French right now so that you can, get from point A to point B, because people don't really speak English that much. You might have some people, that will try to speak a little bit, hello, how are you? But as far as getting around town, getting around the country, you're definitely going to need a little bit of French and Wolof if you begin to learn it as you come. But I would say number one, do your research. Number two, start learning a little bit of French. And I would say number three is be fearless. Because sometimes, we might have something that we have been dreaming of or want to do, but we kind of let the outside chatter get into our ear, or maybe I'll do it next year, or, maybe I'll just save a little bit more. I would definitely say saving is important, but just always making excuses before we even kind of get to the point of taking the first step. So, being fearless is the third point, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about saving. How much money do you think is enough for someone like a single person to move? You was $5,000, but how much do you think is safe? Is a good amount for someone to have to move to Senegal, Dakar?
I would say safe about no less than $5K, because when you think about housing and transportation and food, eating daily, or if you're deciding to cook, those things can, I think like the monthly spending average for a single person is around like maybe 800, 900 US dollars. If you're staying in a little bit more luxurious place, it could go up to about 1,000. Between rent, transportation, food, and little amenities that you might need from month to month.
Now, I'm sure you've seen some opportunities down here in Dakar, Senegal, in Africa in general, right? You've been to Ghana, you've been to Senegal. What would you say are some business opportunities you've been able to identify? Not necessarily you being involved in it. Maybe a friend has been involved in it and has been able to get some return on investments. Can you give out some three businesses that you think if a diasporan should venture into it, it's bound to give some profit in a due time and would probably be difficult to run at a loss?
Yeah. I would say a restaurant. Restaurants can be very profitable if there's a market for the type of food that you're bringing, because a lot of African countries, especially Senegal, the diaspora community is growing, and sometimes you kind of miss those foods that we are used to. So a restaurant would be good. Real estate, anywhere you go in the world, owning land, having real estate is something that is very profitable. It's definitely one that I would not jump into if I were you, because you need to make sure the people who you are dealing with, buying the land from, everything checks out, everything is legit, and you know where your money is going. And then, so restaurant, real estate, and then agriculture. I was reading an article that said that by the year 2030, the African continent, I think, would have a profit of about $2 billion in agriculture. So I believe agriculture is another promising business for the continent.
Now, talking about businesses, have you invested into any kind of business? You mentioned land or stuff like that. Have you ventured into anything like that yet, or maybe not yet?
No, not yet, because I believe kind of slow and steady wins the race. You don't want to jump in too soon, jump in the deep end, and you're learning how to swim. So I think, taking those baby steps is definitely something that I have taken to, because learning a culture, learning a language, learning how to navigate is already enough in itself So then on top of that, adding business right away can be a little bit cumbersome. And so one way you can profit while you are here is by, you know, putting out your work or putting out your life and letting people know what you are doing and what you are part of. For myself, I use YouTube and Instagram as that avenue to be able to encourage people and inspire them to be able to essentially fulfill their dreams.
Now, you made mention that you were in Harvard, right? Or Harvard program? You missed, I don't know.
Howard University.
Oh, Howard?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Harvard or Howard?
There is a Harvard, that's a PWI. I went to Howard University, which is a historically black college and university, the illustrious Howard University in Washington, D.C.
I like that. I was about to say, okay, I mean, you really, from our conversation, you're really very knowledgeable. And I wanted to say, you know, how do, like, you're single, right? You moved to Africa single, alone. Did you, I don't know, did you find a, how's your dating life been? Were you single? If you were not, have you tried dating? And how's, you know, the dating scene like since you moved to the continent?
That's a good question, especially for singles looking to move abroad, because I know everybody like passport sis, passport bros, all of these things. So definitely get your passport, regardless if you're trying to find love or not. That's something you should have, is your passport, to be able to see the world. However, I feel like dating, it really just, it depends on your approach to dating. If you are a person that's more of an introvert and like to kind of stay to yourself, or if you're more extroverted and like to be out on the scene, it just depends on the type of person you are. I think that there's something for everybody here in Senegal, for the kind of quiet and reserved daters and for the more outgoing daters as well.
So are you single now or not?
Right now I am dating, and I, you know, have a serious partner, but I'm not married yet or engaged yet.
I like that. Now we're almost at the end of the conversation. If someone is watching you now, and you would like to send a message over to the person, it could be your family, it could be your friends who were having misconception about Africa, it could be anybody. What would you say to them after living in Africa, Dakar, Senegal for 1 year and 3 months?
Yeah, I would say don't knock it until you try it. You never really know a thing until you have tried it out for yourself. So I always grew up knowing that you don't go by what other people say, you experience it for yourself and you let your own self be the judge of that. So I would say definitely at some point in your life, if it is a goal or aspiration of yours, make it to the continent. You never know the possibilities that you may unlock. I always tell people, especially, you know, my Senegalese brothers and sisters, they're like, you're here. I'm like, yeah, Africa is the future, you know. So even kind of dispelling some of the myths amongst the locals here about their own country and their own continent that they live on. I think that we really have to get to a place of more power and structure within our leadership, taking out the corruptness, so that as a continent, Africa can thrive.
We are almost at the end of the conversation. You know, did you track your routes by any chance to connect you to Senegal, or you've not done that yet?
I have traced back my heritage and my roots, and no, I don't have any trace back to Senegal outside of, you know, now living here for 15 months and having a godson who is from here as well. So, but I think that now that I've been here for over a year, you know, a lot of the Senegalese like, oh, you're Senegalese now, you know, you have that kind of swag and that twang to you that the local Senegalese have. And so I appreciate, you know, just being immersed in the culture and being able to kind of adapt to the local culture and also bring a part of myself to it as well.
Now, I want to ask, have you been to the slave dungeons here in Dakar or not yet?
Yes, I have been to Gorée Island, in which the slave dungeons are held. And for me, it's always important to at least visit so that I can kind of, make my mark as far as, taking that pilgrimage, so to speak. It's always very heavy for me, just like the Elmina slave dungeon in Ghana as well, just like here, Goree Island. It's heavy. For any diasporan, I believe that going and visiting those places, you will feel such a heavy weight that it's kind of indescribable, but knowing that somebody in your bloodline survived, somebody in your bloodline went through, all of these hardships and torture and tumultuous journey, and now you're being able to go back and return, like you all say, Sankofa in Ghana. It is something that really is so fulfilling and so rewarding, being able to kind of be a trailblazer in your bloodline and in your lineage. For myself, I'm the first person in my family to travel to the continent of Africa and now live for over a year in an African country. And so I believe that it's a really big feat, and I just hope that my story will be able to inspire someone else, even if, it's just about learning who you are and knowing your roots and connecting back to the core and the essence of who you are. I know that my journey has not been in vain.
Now, let me add to it. During one of my interviews, I interviewed a lady and her husband, and they moved from Canada to Ghana. And she has been convincing her mom to move along. Her mom is retired. And her mom said something very interesting, that she would rather be broke and stay in Canada than to move to Ghana,
wow,
which is Africa. I know you have a YouTube channel. You've been posting about your moving back and stuff like that. Hearing someone say something like that, when you hear something like that coming from someone, an African American, a Canadian living in the diaspora who have been through all the police brutality, racism, and stuff like that, when you hear that, what would you say as a response to that?
I have heard things like that before, not in the same in the same context, maybe not word for word, but people kind of get comfortable with where they are, and that's okay. It's not for everybody. Many are called, but few are chosen. So this journey is not for everybody, and I think recognizing that, then you can kind of meet people where they are. So you can just kind of start by, showing them your journey and showing them different sides of the African continent to kind of help dispel some of those myths. So my response in that case usually is, well, I think once they see my YouTube, they're like, wow, well, I didn't know that was there. So I kind of respond in a way through my poetry and through my videography, through the videos I put out on my YouTube channel.
Can you tell us one of your poetry?
One of my poems? Yeah, sure. This is like one of my first staple poems that I've done for years now. So this poem is entitled Greatness. Greatness. How does the environment of our African American youth affect who they will grow to become? In most cases, we are put down not only by the outsider looking in, but by the ones who share the same skin to whom we are kin. We are pacified with the everyday motions of life, being blind to the fact that we are continuing a cycle of strife. We look to those who have gained the street titles, not knowing that the need is vital to not only have title in the streets, but have title that's within, a sense of identity, a sense of individuality, so the next person won't look down on me and tell me things that I will not be. Your environment can influence your behavior, but it doesn't have to dictate your destiny. It is often said that we are our own worst enemy. The one who was supposed to be a friend to me turned their back so that they could get ahead out of their own desire to succeed. It is a calamity to see people killing themselves and not even care. It is cowardly to belittle another because you wallow in despair. Back in the days, even though our people didn't have it all together, they stood by each other's side through trials, tribulations, and stormy weather. Where'd the hope and peace go? Tell me what happened to the dream. When will we as a people stand and demonstrate the very essence of unity? How does the present generation think and act regarding to the changes our ancestors fought and died to achieve? This is a new level to decree that African Americans have yet to truly succeed. You see, we take it lightly the countless lives that have been lost so that we may not have to pay the cost of not receiving an education, not having a promising occupation, or not being able to discern what man or woman could run the nation. Truly, the present generation has a lot to be grateful for, but instead, we take it for granted, not knowing the value of sacrifices that were demanded, so that we may be a people of freedom and dignity to flourish and thrive in every industry, and let our past become our history. Your past doesn't dictate your future. It simply gives you the extra push you need to exceed greatness. For African Americans, exceeding greatness is a task that still awaits us.
Now, do we know who we are? From the message I got, we don't know who we are. Do you think most African Americans living in America do know who they are, do know their history before slavery? And what is your opinion on that?
I would say the vast majority don't, but I believe that there is a group of individuals who are raising their consciousness and being intentional about raising their children, or rearing their children, I should say, in order to live in a higher consciousness of who they are and who they have come on this earth to be. But I believe that the vast majority, especially with so many new social influences, with social media and the music pushing a certain agenda, I believe that we still have a lot of work to do.
I like that. I like that. I really like your poem.
Thank you.
Can I get another one?
That's like my staple poem right now. I would say if you all are interested in hearing more of my poetry, you can definitely check out my poetry tab on my YouTube channel, which is entitled Trikeria. That's Trikeria, and there's a plethora of poems out there for you. I also have a 40-day affirmation book that is entitled Triumphant Risings. It's available on Amazon for your purchase, and it's basically to get you in the habit of every day when you wake up affirming your rising, speaking life over yourself, just kind of getting you in that groove to have a productive day.
Now, your YouTube channel is amazing. Tell the people who have not seen your channel before, what kind of content would they be seeing, and what do you do on your YouTube channel?
Yes, so on my YouTube, I focus on travel, poetry, and lifestyle. So I'm a world traveler, an avid traveler. I love traveling. I love seeing the world. So you'll get a little bit of that. You'll get a little bit of my poetry from me going out and doing some spoken word poetry around different cities that I have lived in, and as well as lifestyle. I love eating healthy, I love working out, and I love doing yoga. So those are some things that you will see on my channel. And of course, always getting that encouraging word, those words of wisdom.
You said a lot in your poem. Let's speak a little bit of the consciousness of our people. You mentioned that a lot of people are now beginning to awaken their consciousness, but then there's also social media trying to pull it back, right? Mm-hmm. Showing videos that are irrelevant to most of our people, to distract them and stuff like that. Can we, if someone is watching, what are the things for them to do differently, or what can they do differently in order to awaken themselves or increase their consciousness? Because the minority are the ones having what you just mentioned, but the majority of people are still somehow, I will not say lost, but still finding it very hard to, get back on track, understanding where what they've been through in the past, what is forefathers dying, and it almost feel like we've won now, but not really, right? We are still under severe economical, disadvantage in the U.S. and even black people in general, right? Mm-hmm. But then we are so comfortable and doing all this nonsensical things. What would you say to that?
I would say, this is definitely something that I have been struggling to find the answer to, and I often, ask people in my close circle, like, what do we feel like are the steps that are necessary in order to thrive as a people again. And I feel that we have to get a little bit more disciplined and intentional about how we live our lives. But, it's hard to do that when you're merely trying to survive. You're trying to put food on the table. You're trying to make sure that, your children get an education, or, what have you, just going through those day to day, or, going out and making sure that you go back home safely, you make it back home safely. So I think when people are put into this survival mode, it creates a barrier for them to thrive. And so I believe that first we need to start with the youth, because the youth are our future. And so I believe that starting with the youth and getting more programs into our communities that will build their self-esteem, build their confidence, give them lessons on actually who they are, beyond the slave trade, because our history goes way beyond, goes way deeper. So I believe that the youth are the essential key piece in order for us to start to make a difference and make a change. But, that goes to parenting as well. It's hard to reach the youth when they're living in environments that don't nurture their growth. A part of the poem, it said, your environment may dictate your future, but it doesn't have to, your environment may influence you, but it doesn't have to dictate your future. And so I believe that if we really go into the community and get programs for our youth, that we have a better chance of really not merely surviving, but actually thriving.
Now, you mention of in your poem that people are killing each other, and everyday black on black crimes. Not to say that there's no white on white crimes, right? But then this is really like a canker in the society of the black community, and that is one of the things pulling us back, right? Why do you think after so many years we still have that going on till this day, and it's so hard for our brothers? And I don't know to say me, but most of our brothers in the Americas have cousins, nephews who are into this gang and find it very difficult to come out of. Why do you think that is?
I think that it's systematic. It begins with the nurturing from a young age, from infancy, and then going on to the public school systems, and then going into being thrown out into regular life. And by no means am I saying that the only hardships we face are with each other. Of course we face hardships outside of our immediate community, but because we face hardships outside of our immediate community, that's even more reason for us to be organized. That's even more reason for us to come together and to build and to really buckle down and rebuild a solid foundation. And it is happening. It's happening across the country. People are, having their communities where they're homeschooling their children, and they're growing their own foods, eating organically. All of these things are important. They're reading, they're learning beyond just day-to-day survival. And so it is happening, but on a global context there is still a lot that has to be done. And so I think step by step, daily actionable steps is what I like to say. That's what's going to help us reach our goal. If we kind of look at it in such a big lens, it kind of seems overwhelming. And so what I've learned is, okay, where do I fit in helping complete the puzzle? It's not our duty to solve everything and eradicate everything and at this very moment, but making those daily actionable steps and being intentional about what we are representing and what we are putting out, so that we can become more cohesive as a community.
Now, you are a model. You've been in music videos, Toby music video, which is huge, right? Now, how do what do you think about how black women portray themselves in the music videos or even online? Look at someone like Sexy Red, and she being a black woman. What do you think that does to the image of a black woman?
That's a really good question, especially also being a musician myself and always wanting to put out what is positive and, you know, still kind of hip. I think that the deficit in the music industry specifically is very great right now, and this is something that I've been so passionate about because I feel like more so like hip hop and rap as a poet, I feel we have kind of taken steps back, you know. I believe that there's a time and a place, you know. So there's a time and a place for certain things, you know, to dress a certain way, to act a certain way, to listen to a certain song. But if we're talking about the overall consciousness, like mainstream media, there is a huge lack in our music industry and how we are being betrayed on a global scale. And now this is just me speaking from context of having lived in other countries around the world and being an American citizen myself. And so by no means am I saying that, you know, shame on them for doing what they do or saying what they say, but you know, as artists, we do have a mandate. And I know a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I'm just putting out music, but those people are listening to your music and supporting you. And so just kind of being more mindful in how we do it and how we portray ourselves. It's a little bit difficult because a lot of new artists, they want to be trendy. So what's going to trend? What's going to be hot so they can get those streams? And I think that that has kind of put artists back as well, having to get streams now instead of people actually going out and buying physical copies of their CDs. All in all, we can do a lot better because at the end of the day, it's not just a lot of these things that we feel are so like frivolous. It's actually important, you know, it's important the legacy that you leave, it's important the things that you put out into your community. So these are things that we have to start thinking about and really trying to progress in.
Just to end this, I want to ask you one question. It's been 1 year, 3 months. Will you say this journey to Africa, Senegal, Dakar has been worth it for you?
So I would say it definitely has been worth it for my overall growth. I feel like I went through like a wilderness season, and anytime you're trying to reach higher consciousness, you have to kind of go through a season of solitude. I like to say solitude more so than isolation, because isolation makes you feel like you're alone, and you're really never alone. There's always somebody that you can call on, even if it's, you know, the higher power, the Most High, Allah, however you call it, God. So you're never truly alone. So I think it's more so that solitude space of really kind of sitting and being with yourself and learning yourself, and in those still moments, those quiet moments, those moments where the outside noise and the outside chatter is not what's seeping into your thought process and influencing your daily action. So that is really important, finding that place of solitude. And when I came here, I was first in chess, and I really was able to get into my solitude space. And even moving to Dakar, living in the city, I find my moments of solitude, you know, where I turn my phone off for the day. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm in my soul. I'm in my skin. I'm in, you know, my own presence, like learning to be in your own presence. And I believe that coming here, it only heightened that for me.
I like that. Now, how do people find you? You're a musician, you're a poet. How do people find you? What's your Instagram, your YouTube, and other platforms?
Yeah. So my Instagram is I am Trikeria. That's IAM TRIKERIA, and my YouTube is Trikeria TRIKERIA. So those are the platforms that I use, and From there, I have my link on my bio on my Instagram, as well as on my YouTube. You can find all of my various links to my book and different poetry and things like that.
Now, I want you to say one reason why someone watching this video should visit Senegal, Ghana, Africa.
I think one reason why you should visit Senegal is for the teranga, for the hospitality, to be welcomed into the most Western country, the most Western African country on the continent. This is literally like the gateway to Africa, coming from the Americas. And yeah, I think that is one of the main reasons for the teranga and really getting back to your roots.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.